Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley, and this is Reading with Your Kids. We're beaming out to you and to the entire planet from the beautiful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. Reading with Your Kids is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. Our mission is to help families grow stronger, closer, and kinder through the magic of reading together. And we are absolutely thrilled and honored to have you on this mission with us. Please help spread the word by telling all of your family and friends, your kids' teachers, librarian, principal, even the school crossing guard, that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Audible, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really wonderful show for you today. First up, Ryan T. Higgins is here to celebrate his wonderful Good Night Bruce series. And later in the show, since this is episode 2400, we thought we would take a listen back to one of the best episodes of 2024. And we'll be listening to Tammy Kirkness. She'll be celebrating her wonderful book, Follow the Arrows, From Anxiety to Calm. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Fart Boy and Reeky Dog, Dino Doom. Fantastic new graphic novel written by New York Times bestselling author Joan Holub, who's written over 200 amazing books for kids. It's school sleepover at the museum. What could go wrong? Well, how about this? A snack-fueled explosion of garbanzo beans and peanuts unleashes a stink so powerful it brings the dinosaurs back to life. Now, Fart Boy, Reeky Dog, and their friends are in the middle of a dino-sized disaster. They have to solve tricky riddles, find missing bones, and stop the stinkiest villain of all, Professor Gravy Pants. Because if they don't, the dinosaurs could take over. Or worse, they could become Dino Dinner. This action-packed graphic novel is bursting with friendships, adventure, and enough laughs to shake the museum walls. If your kids love superheroes, if they love dinosaurs, and if they love to laugh until they can't breathe, then Fart Boy and Reeky Dog Dino Doom is the book for you. Because sometimes the power to save the world comes from the unlikeliest place. Grab your copy today and get ready for a reading adventure that's truly dynamite. Join us right now from the great state of Maine. Our guest is here today to celebrate his new picture book. It's called Good Night, Bruce. Please welcome to the show, Ryan Higgins. Ryan, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, Ryan and I were just chatting about how wonderful and how big the state of Maine is. And it's really it's a really incredibly diverse place because you have the coast, you have the cities, and then you have the deep forest.
Yeah. I feel like we have a little bit of everything except for deserts and tropical forests. But you know, we've got mountains. We've got, like you said, we have one real city. You know, Portland. Everything else is just either what is it, Bangor? They like to call the biggest little city on earth or something, or or the littlest city on, I forget what it is, but it's like a friendly little city, which it technically counts. Funny thing about Portland is that the total population of our biggest city, which is Portland, is smaller than a lot of larger state universities. So like University of Ohio, more people go to there than live in Portland proper. So
yeah. And I think the entire population of the state is smaller than the population of Greater Boston.
Oh yeah. I think something. It's not very big. I don't know the total numbers, but it's it's fun to walk around in a big city like Boston or New York City, and every block is the size of like it's a block is the size of a town in Kitty, like the number of people living in one area, the towns in Maine.
And, I've literally driven all over the country. The only place I haven't gone to is the Northwest. But Maine is the only place in the United States that I've gone to where towns are numbered. 95 entering T2R8.
Yeah. Once you get far enough up there, they just kind of give up on names. They'll be like Township 85. And I could be wrong when I'm saying this, so don't use this for any quizzes or anything later. But I believe the reason that they aren't given a name if the population is under a certain level, then they don't have they don't technically have like a town government, and so it just gets a name. Again, I could be widely wrong on this. I know about making my own kids' books, but I'm not a specialist on towns. But
well, let's talk about your book, Good Night, Bruce. Tell us about Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce is a lovable grump who gets so accidentally. He becomes the mom of 3 geese, and then a few books later on, 4 mice. And no, sorry, reverse that. 4 mice and 3 geese. And he's he becomes the mom of 4 mice and 3 geese. Reverse that again. I keep saying it wrong. 3 mice and 4 geese. And he just kind of he's a grump. He doesn't like very much, and he seems pretty prickly on the outside, but at the end of the day, he winds up doing the right thing. He winds up taking care of his family members. He just likes to grump about it for the whole time. Yeah. And the fun thing about making the books for me is that I am not a grump, but I do have grumpy feelings, and I don't usually let them escape. And so Bruce is sort of my grumpy outlet. There is, I don't have a tendency to like going places or doing things, and Bruce has that too. And I'm always a people pleaser, and I basically say yes to everything. And so I wind up going to events. I'm happy when I'm there. I enjoy them. But if it were just up to me, I'd probably stay home most of the time. I need like a nudge in the direction to go and enjoy life. And Bruce needs that too. But it's fun to write about him and sort of like inflect those, like that little bit of grumpiness into a character that sort of embodies it.
Now, do you get inspiration for the different books by being invited to an event and having to go there and just write down, I'm going to write a good book about this?
Yeah, for sure. Getting roped into doing stuff. I got roped into being part of a Scouts program. It wasn't exactly Cub Scouts, it was Cub Scout adjacent. And I remember being asked, and in my mind I was like, I don't want to do this. And then I went and I had a lot of fun, but it got me thinking, well, that's kind of cool. That could be something that happens to Bruce. It never winds up being a full storyline in any of the Bruce books that he gets invited to be a scout leader, but it winds up being a joke that I threw into one of the books. So I'll put in some bits that are from real life as usually as side jokes, but sometimes it'll be the whole seed behind a whole story.
Well, you remind me of a time when I was invited to go out to perform in Minnesota, and they wanted me to perform in Minnesota in late November. And when I got the call, I said, absolutely not. Call me in the spring. And they offered me so much money, I couldn't say no. And my wife was like, get in the car, you're driving to Minnesota. And I got there and I had a great time, but I was grumpy the whole way.
Yeah, well, gosh, Minnesota in November. I mean, you could be winding up in snowstorms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not that we can't here in New England. We have our share, but it's different. You're driving strange roads.
Yeah. It's more like a coastal snow.
Yeah. Tell me, you were telling as you were telling us about Bruce's family, you kind of mixed up the number of geese and the number of mice. Have you ever turned in a manuscript and had the editor call you up and say, Ryan, you got the number of siblings wrong here?
What I do get a lot is I tend not to draw all the geese because the geese don't have names. I haven't given them names. I kind of leave that open for the readers. And they sort of act as a unit. There are 4 geese, and the 4 geese kind of act as a single character. It's like a flock of them, and they're everywhere, and they look the same. And so I try to get away with just drawing 2 of them, or maybe 1 of them, and like the side of another one. And my editor will always be like, "Well, you're missing some geese in here. You should probably draw all of them." And I'm like, but we can get away with just having a couple. And so I always have to draw all the geese in. Sometimes they'll be missing. Sometimes one will not be in the frame, but I'll have a reason for it. I'll have it facing the other way and walking out of the frame, so that makes sense that it's not in the next page. I usually get the number of mice correct because they have names and very individual personalities. Each of the mice is a little bit different parts of myself, my own neuroses.
Have you ever thought about writing the geese out of the series?
I think a lot of the audience would be mad if I did.
Yeah, probably.
Sometimes I will have some books where they hardly show up, and I've gotten fan mail where there'll be kids that are disappointed. I had one where a grandmother said that she's like, the geese were not in this one. You may be losing a reader or something like that. Like she's like, the geese are my favorite, and I love the geese too. They sort of, in the beginning, they're baby geese, so they're goslings in the very first book, and then they grow up throughout the course of the book, and then for the rest of the series, since they grew up in the first book, they have to be grown-up geese, and they're fun to work with. I feel like I'm saying I'm trying to write my geese out, but I do have some ideas for there's a whole storyline to explore of. Not an empty nester, because the mice are going to live there forever. The mice are technically grown-ups. One of them has a mustache, and he still lives with Bruce. So I think they'll live there forever. But I do want to explore the idea someday of Bruce having to let go a little bit in the way that, parents let go when their kids go off to college or go off to get a job or move out. And I think the geese could be a fun way to explore that. I can't give away too much for my story idea, but I'm excited to explore that someday.
Yeah. So the Bruce, where did that come from? I know you talked a little bit about he's your grumpy outlet, your ability to express some of your grumpiness, but just the vision of it. Had you started writing, what came first, the idea for the character or the image of the character?
This one was different than a lot of my stories in that it was the image of the character. Usually I come up with a character type, and then I will figure out what type of animal it needs to be. But with this, it was a drawing of a bear in a sketchbook that I had drawn a sketch of a bear being followed by baby birds. And I didn't know what to do with the story. It sat in my sketchbook for, could have been maybe a year. And it was in this interesting part of my life. It was sort of like an act of desperation. I had started my career self-publishing books because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really even consider traditional publishing at first. I finished college. I had a friend who was a comic book creator, and the comic book, actually I can say who he was. His name was Steve Levine. He was one of the original cartoonists for the Ninja Turtle comics.
Oh, yeah.
And he wasn't one of the 2 creators, but he was one of a cartoonist friend of theirs, and we were all friends in high school, and they worked together on it. And I became friends with him over time through an acquaintance. And when I graduated college, he had taken me under his wing and kind of like mentored me through my senior year of college. And when I graduated, he was self-publishing picture books, and I thought that's pretty cool. I'll give that a try. Because I wanted to be a comic strip cartoonist, and when I got out of college in the early 2000s, newspapers were kind of, print newspapers weren't as many of them as there used to be. Mm-hmm. And then web comics were not quite as big as they are now. So it was kind of this weird time. And I saw him doing picture books. I decided to give it a try, but I self-published them. And I wound up selling all of my, so I used to do landscaping. That was my job. I mowed lawns and dug ditches and built stone walls and stuff like that. either because I believed in myself or I was just very naive, I sold all of my landscaping equipment and used that to pay for a print run of, it was 5,000 books that I printed of these books that I had made. And they were these hardcover books. I thought they came out pretty well. And then they came home and I didn't know what to do with them. Like I hadn't thought that through. And I will get to answer your question eventually about
That's fine. I love off-roading. No worries.
So I had these 5,000 books, and my grandmother was very good friends with my former elementary school principal, and he was still the principal at the elementary school that I went to. And she got him to invite me to come visit the school. And so I went to the school and I read my book to the kids. I did a little presentation, told some jokes, drew some pictures. And at the end of it, the teachers all came up and were like, how do the kids buy the books? And I was like, oh, score, yes. So I sent home, I made up the a little order sheet, sent it home, and I sold a bunch of books. And I was like, well, that's how I'll sell the books. So for 2 years, I traveled the country selling books through school visits. I would do free school visits. And then at the end, I would just send home book orders. And in the summer, I would make a new book. So I did 3 books total that way. And I made out fine. It wasn't a lucrative job, but it was doing what I loved. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was really making a pretty good go of it. My wife was an elementary school teacher, so we weren't bringing in the big bucks, but it was okay. We were young and we didn't have a family. Then we started a family, and we had, over the course of 2 years, we had 2 young kids, and being a self-published author wasn't really paying the bills along with my wife being a teacher. So I applied for some jobs in my town. One of them was a sheet metal mechanic, and just some various jobs, and I got no callbacks. Nobody called me back for any of the jobs that I was applying for. And in a moment of desperation, I was just looking through my sketchbooks, like, is there another great idea? And I saw this bear that I drew. He was grumbling and he was being followed by these baby birds. And I was like, well, I got to make a story about that. And I sat down, and I think this is one of the first times that a whole story came out of me in one sitting. And the first Mother Bruce book, I wrote just in one sitting. I mean, it was a rough draft, but it was the same basic story from beginning to end. It needed a lot of work, but I was really happy with it. And I decided maybe I'll give traditional publishing a try, and I sent out the manuscript to some agents, and a few of them got back to me. One of them I really jived with, and I signed with him, and within 2.5 weeks from signing with him, I had I think it was a 3-book deal with Disney-Hyperion. And it was the advance was enough for me to feel okay with not traveling the country selling books out of my cars anymore. The problem was, one of the books that I signed with them was one of the books that I had self-published, and they said, we're really excited to make all these books. One stipulation is you can't sell the self-published one you made anymore. And I had just done a print run of 10,000 of them. And so I had 10,000 of these, one copy of this book. It became the book that is now titled Be Quiet. And so I had all these copies. They had a different title at the time, but that was fun. Every new office or studio I would move into, I'd have to bring all those books. And I had probably 4 different offices over 5 years. And so I would carry 10,000 books like up all these stairs, or, drive them to another town. And at some point, I just realized I couldn't do anything with them. And I saved a bunch, and I wound up recycling a bunch. And some of them I wound up donating. I wasn't allowed to donate them to English-speaking countries just because of some sort of competition clause or something. I don't know exactly the logistics of it. I sent them to some other countries, and I wound up recycling thousands of them, and it felt so bad, just shoving them off into the paper recycling area of the dump.
Oh man! And I can't imagine what the kids who don't speak English did with those books.
Nothing. That maybe they like the pictures.
Boy, that's a wonderful story.
Anyway, so that's where Bruce came from.
Well, That's a cool way to, Now, being in Maine, is that one of the reasons you think you were inspired to draw the moose, the bear?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. I would say almost all of my animal characters are Maine, like can be found in Maine. Across my books, except for I have a series, Penelope Rex series, that has a dinosaur in it. They aren't, I mean, technically T-Rexes. No, I don't think they ever lived in what is now Maine. Doesn't matter. But you can't find a T-Rex in Maine anymore. And there is one scene in the Bruce books where some elephant tourists show up. But they're out of towners, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to place most of them in Maine. In fact, there are the little Easter eggs. Like Bruce drives a little yellow antique motorbike. And it's actually my motorbike. So because I'm boring and not creative, I decided instead of creating a new motorbike, I just redrew my own motorbike for him to ride on. Easy access. It's right there. I can take pictures of it and look at it from different angles. But the license plate on it in the Bruce books, it's from Maine. It says Maine, and then it's just GRRR. So it's Grr, which I tried to get, but somebody already has it.
Oh man. It's funny. Maine is such a beautiful. I had an experience. I was doing the whitewater rafting, and I was up with a bunch of friends who were more into partying than being in nature. And so I just went off on this really long 25-mile bike ride, and there was no cars, no nothing, and it's just beautiful. And then all of a sudden I heard a noise, and I turned over my shoulder, and here's a moose running alongside me. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And then a part of me said, wow, if she turns this way, I'm dead. But she didn't. She turned off and back into the woods. And so that was a nice, happy ending to the story.
Do you want to hear another story about a moose?
Absolutely.
So I can't say it's not my story, but it's close enough. It's my wife's story.
Okay.
Where the year that she got her driver's license, so she would have been 16.
Mm-hmm.
She was driving from. So she grew up just 2 towns over from me, so pretty local. She was driving from, I think it was like a soccer practice or something, to her grandmother's house in another town near mine. And when she was driving along, a big bull moose came running out of the woods into the side of her car. And so she didn't hit it, it hit her. And it spun her around, and she went out into a farm, into a field. The moose was fine, just kind of ran off. Her car was dented, but she was able to get it back on the road. And she drove to her grandmother's house and didn't tell her grandmother about it. She was spending the night there. And then she kind of forgot about it. And when she woke up in the morning, she went out and saw the car and saw this huge dent. And then she remembered the whole thing came flooding back to her. And whenever we drive down that road, she's very cautious.
I bet. Hey, how many of the Bruce books are there out in the world these days?
Let's see. That's a great question. I think there are 13 or 14. I think it's 13, I believe. I could be wrong. I know I've made around 20, a little over 20 books. I get asked that question a lot, and I always don't know, because it changes. I make a couple books a year, 2 or 3 books a year, and I do have a checklist. My assistant did write a checklist for me, so I can technically count them. I just haven't done it lately. I would say 13 Bruce books, give or take 2 on either side.
All right. And do you ever wake up and say, man, I'm tired of drawing this grumpy bear, I want to create a new character? Or is it just like, no, me and Bruce, we're tight?
I don't know. I haven't felt bored with making Bruce. The nice thing is that I have another series that I do. Actually, I have a couple other series that I do. So I usually don't do 2 Bruce books in a row. I'll usually do a Bruce book, a Penelope book, Penelope Rex, and then I'll do something else. Lately, I've been doing books about a little porcupine named Norman. And so I'll just kind of cycle back through. So I'm never doing the same character for too long at one time. With that said, I am just now starting I wouldn't call it exactly a graphic novel. It's pretty close to a graphic novel. It's 80 pages and it's about 4 or 5 panels per page. So it's like a starter graphic novel, but it's more the size of a picture book when you look at it. So it's bigger in trim size, shorter in length. And I've been drawing those characters for a while. I'm not bored of them, but I will say, I'm very excited to be in it, but I will say it's different. It feels different when I'm, instead of taking 2 or 3 months on some drawings, I'm looking at 6 or 8 months. So I'll be looking forward to taking a little break from them and going back and doing a Bruce book.
There you go. All right. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Bruce, find out more about Penelope and your starter graphic novel, and more about you.
Yeah. If they can remember my name, that's the best place to start. It's just RyanTHiggins.com. Goes to my website. I don't post on social media as much as I am supposed to, but on my website, there are links to my basically inactive social media accounts. And you can check them out at, pretty much any bookstore carries Bruce books and Penelope books.
Absolutely, yeah. Hey, we've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of Goodnight, Bruce, and the new picture book from our guest, Ryan T. Higgins. Hey, Ryan, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was great chatting with you.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Atmosphere Press. Have you been dreaming about publishing a children's book, one that sparks imagination, creates bedtime memories, and maybe even becomes part of a family's story for years to come? The truth is, great ideas deserve more than a file sitting on your laptop. They deserve to become real books, beautifully designed, professionally published, and ready to reach young readers everywhere. At Atmosphere Press, you get expert guidance through every step of the journey, from editing and illustration to design, distribution, and marketing. So your book doesn't just get published, it gets positioned for success. Whether it's your first picture book, a middle grade adventure, or the story you've been carrying for years, now's the time to bring it to life. Visit atmospherepress.com to send in your manuscript and see what your book could become. That's atmospherepress.com, where your book can go above and beyond even your wildest dreams. Join us right now from Sydney and the beautiful nation of Australia, the beautiful and a little soggy nation of Australia. Our guest is here today to celebrate Why Do I Feel So Worried? Follow the Arrows from Anxiety to Calm, a guide for kids and parents. Please welcome to the show, Tammy Kirkness. Hey, Tammy, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you on. Tammy and I were just talking. A lot of Australia has suffered some major flooding, and we're happy that Tammy is okay and that the people in my family that are down there are okay, and we pray for everybody in that's being affected. I'm imagining a lot of those folks are and have been feeling a lot of anxiety.
Oh, I tell you what, a global pandemic, a war in Russia and Ukraine, flooding, and a few years ago we had some really extensive bushfires here. It's a tough going time for a lot of people.
It really is, and we've talked here on the podcast about there are a lot of parents out there who don't want their kids to skin their knee or experience any kind of sadness or loss, and that's really unrealistic and probably not healthy, and it's especially unrealistic now. Our kids, even if we're trying to protect our kids, and we're not talking about the pandemic or the invasion or the floods or the fires, if we're not talking about it at our homes, you can bet that your kids are hearing about it at school.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Information has a way of wiggling itself into kids' ears. And if we as the parents or caregivers or teachers or librarians are not having that conversation and talking about the tricky parts and the parts that make us feel wobbly, uncomfortable, worried or anxious, kids' minds will create their own story around what's going on, and it can really rock them from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. Anybody, I'm a parent. My kids are 26 and 29, and we had a really great relationship. But we usually would wait until the kids brought us up, especially about questions about sexuality and whatnot. There were some issues that they had questions about, and they didn't bring them to us right away. And when they did, they had already kind of worked out answers to that. And when they shared those answers with us, it was like, I kind of can imagine how you got there, but you're not even close. So let's sit down and talk about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Getting on the front foot with these things is so important. And, having those age-appropriate conversations is really vital. And it can be as simple as, hey, have you heard anything at school about a country called Ukraine? Mm-hmm. And that's your in. And they might say, no. Mm-hmm. Or they might say, yeah, our teacher was talking about it. And then that can be your space to leapfrog off there and say, well, what do you know? Is there anything that's worried you about it? Let me tell you a little bit about what I know, and go from there.
Yeah. I like that. I like that, bringing up in a non-threatening, not a sit down, I have to tell you about this. Just kind of, hey, have you heard anything about this? And what have you heard? And try to gauge that before you just dump all this information, maybe dump your own anxiety onto the kids. Kind of get a sense of where they're at.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I think it's worth pointing out that if you do that, or you have done that, that's okay, because you're also a human being. And parents, we are so fallible. And, there are times where our own worries or our own emotional sensitivities that have been coming up through the day burst out. And all of a sudden we've gone, oh, that's not really what I meant to say. And that's okay too. When we acknowledge that may have happened, then we can have that conversation as well. So I think the main thing to really consider here is being, as Brene Brown says, being in the arena, having the tricky conversations, and showing your kids that actually it's okay to talk about things that make us feel uncomfortable. And it's also okay to stuff up the conversation and mess it up somehow and talk around that as well.
I like that. One of the pieces of advice I give to young parents anytime I'm asked is to climb down off that pedestal that your kids put you on, and that they're looking up at you thinking that you're perfect and wonderful and have all the answers, and you really want to get off that pedestal as soon as possible.
Oh, it's tempting to stay up there though, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And showing our vulnerabilities and showing that we make mistakes creates such a safer space for kids to also get comfortable with failure and doing things wrong and saying things even when they need to be said, but you don't quite have the right phrasing for it.
Mm-hmm. Tammy, what's your background? We didn't invite you on the show just because you wanted to talk about this. This is your field.
Yes. So I started off my world in psychology, and I used that as a platform to actually go into all things corporate as it so would happen. And I did everything in the people space there, and I found myself burning out and realized that I had this underlying wash of anxiety that had been sitting within my world for truly as long as I can remember. And when I started to realize that and approach it and figure out ways to better manage it, my life started to get a lot more graceful. And that was such a breath of fresh air for somebody who's used to shallow breathing. Along the way, I also trained as a yoga teacher in India in a monastery under monks over there. I worked as a clinician over in the UK, so working with kids and a few adults as well, but predominantly kids who have all manner of learning difficulties. So everything through from dyslexia to autism. And with that, having a worried little mind goes very much hand in hand with a lot of those learning difficulties. And then underneath all of that, I was a bit of a worried kid myself and had some very big emotions. I was a perfectionist. I procrastinated. I overthought everything, and I had this very big mind that wanted to understand everything. And on one hand, it was amazing, and it continues to be a big gift. But on the other hand, it was something that I didn't quite understand and wished that I had some more tools and techniques to help me feel a little bit more grounded and a little bit more at peace and calm within myself. And so this background, a rather smushy background of all these different things, came together to prompt me to write initially an adult's book around helping myself with anxiety that went on to do quite well. And so I was so thrilled to be able to create this book for kids, so age 7 to 12-ish, to help them when I wish I had have had some of those techniques myself.
Yeah. You mentioned that you look at part of your personality that has caused you issues as a gift.
Yeah.
And I think we've had a lot of guests on who surprise us in referring to their dyslexia. And I think my dyslexia is a gift. I think my neurodiversity is a gift. And I think that that's a really healthy way to look at it, because all of our uniqueness can be looked at as a gift or as a problem. And I think if we train ourselves and help our kids to understand that their unique abilities, it does set them apart. It does make their life challenging sometimes, but ultimately it's a gift and it's a superpower if you learn how to use it as such.
Oh, absolutely. You know, coming from having taught a lot of kids in the neurodivergent space, and then also my own experience of being an anxious kid with big emotions, I really look at these differences in how people's minds and brains work as this ability for them to see the world in a different way, from a different perspective. And if we didn't have that in the world, there would be such beigeness and everything would be so neutral, and there'd be no sparkle and no innovation or creativity. And we need that in our world to continue to lift up ourselves, our communities, our schools. And so we need these people that have different ways of seeing the world, and their hearts are different as well, and understanding that they have this additional ability to see things in such a way that it adds an additional element of how beautiful the world can be, and how we can solve problems, and how we can interact with each other and respect each other in such a beautiful, interesting way. So I do see it as a gift, and I would love and wish for other people who have a worried mind or an anxious mind or an overthinking way of approaching the world to see that as a gift, and to be able to neutralize out the parts that bring them some kind of struggle or pain at the same time.
Yeah. So what are some of these techniques that we can help our kids learn that can kind of smooth out and help them start using those anxious minds in a productive way?
Yeah, so one of the ones that is surprising to a lot of people is to actually have your kids, and this works for adults as well, but to actually have them gargle liquid. which is, I know, not what you would expect. So there is something in our bodies called the vagus nerve, and it runs from the brain all the way down into the gut, into the stomach, and information goes up and down from there. So if your kid says, "Oh, I've got a sore tummy," or "I've got a tummy ache, I don't want to go to school," most parents will go, "Oh." One of those times they're probably a bit nervous about something. And that's an example of that interaction between the gut and the brain. And so if we can help kick that vagus nerve into gear and stimulate it, it helps push our kids or ourselves into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that rest and digest style. And so to do that, if we gargle water, or gargle anything really, it helps stimulate that vagus nerve, which then in turn kicks off the parasympathetic nervous system, which then brings that wash of calm through our bodies. And so if you want to make it a little bit extra fun for kids, you could do it together. You could gargle a song together. So maybe the ABC song, Happy Birthday, whatever it is, both put the water in your mouth and gargle away, and it will help you too. And so when we can get out of that fear-based state, that allows us to reach in and pick up our strengths and the gifts that we have to give to our friendships, to our school, to our homework, to our family. And so that's one way that you can give it a go straight away.
So if I have somebody very close to me who's in high school and just needs to finish one project to graduate and seems to be procrastinating for whatever reason, I could suggest that person, before they sit down to finish up the project, just gargle, and maybe that might kick in something that will get her over the hump.
Yeah, it's wild, right? Singing does a similar thing as well. So singing along to a song can do it. With that specific scenario, in feeling like a procrastinator, we know that there is a big link between perfectionism and procrastination. And so a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm just leaving my assignment to the last minute because I get an endorphin rush then," or "I don't want to do it yet," or they give all these excuses. But most of the time it is linked to this feeling of, if I leave something to the last moment and I get an average result, it doesn't mean that I'm an average person. It means that I left it to the last minute. It was a time constraint. Whereas if we do something early and then we get an average result, so many kids and adults personalize that, and they feel like, "Oh my goodness, I got a C, or I got a D. I'm a C, or I'm a D." When actually, if we take out that sting and that tightness that comes from perfectionism, and we say, actually, we are not our work, that is something that we've created and that's separate from us, it allows people to actually start it earlier. So with a teenager, I would recommend saying, "I know you've left this to the last minute," and that's probably a little bit nerve-wracking. Let's say that we just forgive ourselves for everything that we've left to the last minute up until now, and it's 9 a.m. now. Okay, let's see everything that you can do before midday, and that's it. Whatever you get done by midday, that's the end of the assignment. And when we give a time-based constraint, it helps take the pressure off, because you just get done whatever you get done in that time, and it sends that message that completed, that done is better than perfect, and a reminder that they are not their results.
I think I may be sharing part of this interview with someone special to me before it goes out to the rest of the world. Who knows?
Very good.
Hey, the gargling exercise, that seems like a lot of fun. Is there another one that you can share with us?
Yeah, so another one that I really love, and it works with kids any age, is to do a yoga pose called ragdoll. And so if they feel like they've got too many thoughts all swimming around in their mind, it's just busy, almost a circus upstairs. What you do is you stand up with your kid, any age, could be a teenager as well, get them to stand up, and then they bend over, hinging at the hips like they're going to touch their toes. And then they grab their elbows and dangle like a rag doll. And if you do that for about 20 seconds, get them and prompt them to visualize all of that clutter that is in their mind falling out through the top of their head. It feels fantastic. After your 20 seconds, gently stand up. You don't want to get a head rush. Gently stand back up. And often it's a quick mood shifter and it's a pattern interrupter, as well as the beautiful benefits that we get from it being a yoga-based technique. So if they're worried and all of a sudden you're upside down, it interrupts all of those worry thoughts at the same time. So that's a great one that you can do any ages. And if you're a parent, caregiver, teacher, do it with them. Mm-hmm. You know, make it fun, make it interactive. The two of you, hey, here's something we're going to do together.
Yeah. You know, isn't it interesting that we've sort of forgotten the benefit of taking a break? There are so many people who just are like, they have this project, whether they're kids or adults, and it's like, got to do this, I have to do this, and they're staring at the paper, and absolutely nothing is getting done, and they're miserable, and nothing, and if they took a 20-second break, a 30-second break, a walk around the block, and came back to it, it'd be a new world. It's a game changer.
Oh, big time. And, you know, there is a reason why the most common techniques around soothing anxiety and worry is breathing techniques, because essentially when we are oxygenating the brain, it helps send that wash of calm through our body. And that's exactly what getting up from the school desk or from your work desk as a parent or taking a walk around the block, that's exactly what that does. It pauses where we're at. We get a flush of oxygen going into the brain, and we just see the world with new eyes. It's so simple and so easy.
Yeah. So many things that I guess we should be teaching our kids now before they get to that panic, that crisis moment. If we could give our kids some just really fun activities, or maybe just, we talk about the benefits of reading with our kids. There'd be so many benefits of doing 5-10 minutes of yoga with our kids. So regularly ragdolling and gargling and singing with our kids. And also at the same time helping them understand that these are tools, these are exercises that you can use when you're feeling this way or that way, or anxious or worried, or feeling like need to be a perfectionist.
Oh, absolutely. And the benefit of this book is that it checks off your box as well. You're reading with them and you're doing the activities. So it's interactive, and kids are following the arrows, which feels fun. It feels like a choose your own adventure, interactive kind of style. And, when we model these positive, mentally healthy behaviors for our kids, it sets them up to feel safe to experience their emotions in real life, in real time, and helping them to feel their feelings is one of the greatest gifts that we can give them, because if they don't feel their feelings, they end up getting bottled up and they burst out at the least good time that you want that to happen. And so helping them to do that, doing your best to model it, and being okay with making errors, making mistakes, and recovering as best as you can in front of them is so powerful.
Yeah. I love this. I think it's one that there's a lot of things in the world that should be no-brainers, but it seems like we've forgotten them. And I don't
Indeed.
know. I don't know if it's because we have access to all this information that we just forget the simple things that maybe our ancestors, our forefathers kind of knew instinctually.
Oh yeah, having quality time to sit with your kids, to listen when they say things, to read books with them, to play is so vital for general well-being, general happiness, and it's the topic of the day in busting that stress and creating a pause on the worry thoughts that may be circulating through their mind as well.
Yeah, so very important. Tammy, I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about Why Do I Feel So Worried? Follow the Arrows from Anxiety to Calm, a guide for kids and parents, and also find out more about you.
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram at Tammy Kirkness, so Tammi Kirkness. They can find me there, and also you can get that beautiful book that I'm so proud of in all of your amazing booksellers. You can find it on Amazon, but my very favorite is to support your local bookshop. And if you have access to one of those, get on in there or go to bookshop.com.
Yeah. It's amazing. You can give your bookshop a call and say, hey, do you have Why Do I Feel So Worried? And if they say no, they just ask them politely and they'll order it and it'll be there in a couple of days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We've had a really wonderful time. I can't wait to do the gargling thing. I'm going to do that with my beautiful wife tonight. I've had a great time speaking to the author of Why Do I Feel So Worried? Follow the Arrows from Anxiety to Calm, a guide for kids and parents. And our guest has been the author, Tammy Kirkness. Hey, Tammy, thanks so much for spending time with us.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please think about sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Maybe someone with a kid who's anxious, or maybe someone with a kid who just loves fun stories. And after you do that, please think about leaving a 5-star review and subscribing to the show if you haven't already done so, wherever you find your favorite shows. That really helps us, and we really appreciate it. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Gently Magic on X, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website, readingwithyourkids.com. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, you absolutely want to get yourself over to readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Author's Click Here button up at the top of the page and find out how you can be a guest. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlit fans all over the world about your fantastic children's book. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Ryan T. Higgins. Please be sure to check out Goodnight Bruce. Also want to thank Tammy Kirkness. Please be sure to check out her wonderful book. Also want to thank my team, Chris Gardy, Daylene Advina. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the love and support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. You are the real hero here. You get up every day. You're doing so much for your kids. Thank you so very much for taking time out of that busy day to listen to us. And of course, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Hey! Who here has ever said I can't? Yeah, cool. Now let's fix that. Try to ride, fell off the bike. Hit the ground, didn't like that spike. Just on my knees, doubt in my head. Almost believe what my fear said. Shoelaces loose, heartbeat fast. Thought that moment was gonna last. Then you leaned in, no regret. Said you forgot one word, yeah. Every mountain starts knee high. Every eagle learns to fly. Every master, every vet once was stuck and not yet. You can't say I can't without saying yet. That little word is a mindset reset. Not right now, cool, I'm not through. Leveling up like I always do. You can't say I can't without without saying it. Yeah, math test staring at my face. Brain said nope, I picked up pace. Spelling words that wouldn't stay. Dipped on doubt along the way. Sweat and practice, try again. Fail once, maybe fail times 10. Every stumble, every rep feels the power of YET. Not behind, just on my road. Growth takes time to fully load. Seeds don't bloom the day they're set. They're just quietly growing, yeah. You can't say I can't without saying yet. That tiny word is my best bet. Not today, that's okay. Watch me rise in my own way. You can't say I can't without saying yes. Not done. Yeah, yeah. Who's growing? Yeah. Fall down. Get up. Mess up. Level up. Feel slow now. So what? I'm not finished yet. Maybe I'm scared. Maybe I doubt.